I thought the hardest part of my surgery would be the recovery. I was wrong. The hardest part was sitting in that hospital lobby at 6 p.m. on a Tuesday evening, still wearing that awful hospital gown under my street clothes, watching my entire family post vacation photos while I waited for someone who was never coming. Let me back up for just a second, because you need to understand who these people were to me before I tell you how they shattered my world in the span of 3 hours. My name is Sarah Mitchell, and up until that day, I was the person everyone called when they needed something fixed. At 34, I'd built a successful career in marketing, the kind where you're always putting out fires and making everyone else look good. But more than that, I was the family problem solver. When my dad Robert needed help figuring out his retirement paperwork, he called me. When my mom Linda wanted to surprise my sister Emma with a birthday party, she called me. When my husband David had a work crisis and needed someone to handle everything at home, he called me. I was the reliable one, the strong one, the one who never needed help. David and I had been married for 8 years. We met at a coffee shop near his tech company when I was 26 and still thought love meant finding someone who made you laugh every day. He was this sweet, slightly awkward software engineer who spent 10 minutes trying to figure out how to ask for my number. I thought it was charming. I thought a lot of things about David were charming back then. My parents, Linda and Robert Chen, adopted me when I was 7 years old. My biological parents had died in a car accident, and the Chens were the foster family who decided I was worth keeping forever. Linda was an elementary school teacher with infinite patience and the best chocolate chip cookie recipe in Oregon. Robert was an electrician who taught me how to fix everything from leaky faucets to broken hearts. They gave me stability, love, and most importantly, they gave me Emma. Emma Rodriguez is my younger sister, though not by blood. Linda and Robert adopted her 2 years after me when she was just 4 years old. We became inseparable. She was the free spirit to my organized planner, the artist to my analyst. At 29, she worked in finance but spent her weekends painting murals for local businesses. Emma was the person I called when I needed to laugh, cry, or just remember what it felt like to be spontaneous. This was my family. These were my people. The ones who showed up to every birthday, every celebration, every crisis. When I got food poisoning 3 years ago, Emma brought me soup and stayed to watch terrible reality TV with me. When David and I were having marriage troubles 2 years back, my parents invited us over for Sunday dinners until we worked things out. When I got the promotion at work last year, they threw me a surprise party in their backyard. So when I scheduled my gallbladder surgery for Tuesday, October 15th, and asked for their help, I never questioned whether they'd be there. This was what we did. We showed up for each other. The surgery itself was routine laparoscopic removal. 3 small incisions, general anesthesia, recovery time of a few hours, and then home with someone to take care of me for the first 24 hours. David promised to pick me up. My parents promised to bring groceries and help with meals. Emma promised to stay the first night to make sure I was okay. I remember lying in that pre-op bed, texting in our family group chat while the nurse prepped my IV. The chat was called the Chen Crew, and it was constantly buzzing with photos, plans, and inside jokes. That morning, everyone was sending me heart emojis and thinking of you messages. David texted, "See you in a few hours, babe. Can't wait to take care of you." I felt so loved, so supported, so completely certain that when I woke up from a surgery, my life would go exactly according to plan. What I discovered when I finally made it home that night changed everything I thought I knew about the people I loved most. But more than that, it changed everything I thought I knew about myself. Because sometimes the worst betrayal isn't what other people do to you. Sometimes it's realizing you've been lying to yourself about who they really were all along. For 6 months before that October day, my body had been trying to tell me something I didn't want to hear. The gallbladder attacks started small, just a dull ache after eating pizza or anything remotely greasy. I'd pop some antacids and push through. That's what I did. I pushed through everything. But by September, the pain was waking me up at 3 a.m., sharp and vicious, radiating from my right side all the way to my shoulder blade. I'd pace around our bedroom, trying not to wake David, pressing my hand against my ribs like I could somehow hold myself together. The attacks were lasting longer, hitting harder and happening more frequently. I remember the night I finally admitted I needed help. David found me curled up on our bathroom floor at 4 a.m., sweating and nauseous from the pain. He knelt down next to me, his hair sticking up from sleep, and said, "Sarah, this is ridiculous. You're going to the doctor tomorrow, and I don't want to hear any arguments about it." That was David at his best. Caring, protective, determined to take care of me even when I wouldn't take care of myself. He drove me to the appointment, held my hand during the ultrasound, and didn't say, "I told you so," when the doctor confirmed what we both already knew. My gallbladder had to come out. Dr. Martinez was this no-nonsense surgeon who looked like she could perform operations in her sleep. She explained the procedure with the kind of confidence that made me feel safe. "Laparoscopic cholecystectomy," she said, like it was the most normal thing in the world. 3 tiny incisions, remove the gallbladder, you'll be home the same day. Recovery is usually pretty smooth for someone your age, but here's the thing about me and hospitals. I've had a phobia of them since I was 7 years old. It goes back to those weeks after my biological parents died, when I spent endless hours in sterile waiting rooms while adults made decisions about my future. The smell of disinfectant, the beeping machines, the way everyone speaks in hushed tones like death is always lurking around the corner. It all takes me right back to being that scared little girl who didn't understand why her world had suddenly fallen apart. David knew this about me. My whole family knew this. They'd seen me have panic attacks in emergency rooms, watched me avoid routine checkups until problems became emergencies. When I finally agreed to schedule the surgery, it felt like the biggest act of trust I'd ever made. The planning became my way of maintaining control. I created a detailed schedule in our family group chat, mapping out exactly who would do what and when. David would drop me off at 7 a.m. and pick me up around 4 p.m. My parents would bring groceries Tuesday evening and cook dinner. Emma would spend Tuesday night at our house in case I needed anything during the night. Wednesday, my mom would come over to help with basic tasks while David was at work. "You guys don't have to do all this," I typed in the chat the night before surgery. "I'll probably be fine on my own." Emma replied instantly, "Absolutely not. We're taking care of you whether you like it or not." My dad chimed in, "That's what families do, sweetheart. No arguments." Linda sent a string of heart emojis followed by, "Already bought ingredients for your favorite chicken soup. It'll be ready when you get home." David, lying in bed next to me, added, "Stop trying to be Superwoman for 5 minutes and let us love you." I screenshot that conversation and saved it to my phone. I wanted to remember that feeling of being completely surrounded by people who cared about me. It was such a rare experience for someone who'd spent most of her adult life being the caregiver rather than the one being cared for. The morning of surgery, David was perfect. He got up at 6 a.m. without complaint, made me tea since I couldn't eat anything, and drove carefully to avoid any bumps that might make me more nervous. In the hospital parking lot, he turned to me and said, "I know you're scared, but I'm going to be right here when you wake up. I promise." I believed him. I believed all of them. Why wouldn't I? These were the people who had shown up for me for years. These were the people who knew my fears, my needs, my history.
These were the people who had earned my trust through hundreds of small acts of love and reliability. As they wheeled me into surgery, my last conscious thought was how lucky I was to have such an incredible support system. How many people could say they had 4 people who loved them enough to rearrange their entire lives around one small surgery? I woke up from surgery around 2:15 p.m., that groggy cottonmouth kind of awakening where reality filters back in slow motion. The recovery room nurse, a woman named Patricia with kind eyes and purple scrubs, was checking my vitals and asking me to rate my pain on a scale from 1 to 10. 4, I croaked, though honestly the surgical pain was nothing compared to those gallbladder attacks I'd been enduring for months. When can I go home? Patricia smiled. Dr. Martinez will check on you in about an hour, and if everything looks good, you should be cleared to leave around 4 p.m. Is someone coming to pick you up? My husband, I said automatically. He'll be here. By 3:30, I was dressed in my own clothes again, sitting in that awful discharge wheelchair, paperwork in my lap, ready to go home. The nurse had given me detailed recovery instructions, pain medication, and a follow-up appointment card. All I needed was David to walk through those automatic doors and help me to the car. 3:45 p.m., I pulled out my phone and sent him a text. Hey, ready to go home. Where are you? The message showed as delivered, but no response. I figured he might be stuck in traffic or looking for parking. The hospital was downtown, and parking was always a nightmare. 4 p.m. came and went. I called his cell phone. It rang 6 times and went to voicemail. Hi, you've reached David Mitchell. Leave a message and I'll get back to you. David, it's me, I said after the beep. I'm ready to be picked up. The nurse says I can't leave without someone to drive me. Where are you? Call me back. By 4:30, I was starting to feel genuinely confused. David wasn't the type to be late for important things, especially not something like this. I called again. Voicemail again. This time, I didn't leave a message. The discharge nurse kept walking by, giving me sympathetic looks. Other patients came and went, picked up by spouses, children, friends. The lobby was cycling through people, but I remained in that same wheelchair, checking my phone obsessively. At 4:45, I decided to check our family group chat to see if maybe David had sent an update there. That's when my world tilted sideways. The chat was full of new messages, but none of them were about me or my surgery. Instead, Emma had posted a series of photos that made my stomach drop. The first was a selfie of her in oversized sunglasses, palm trees blurred in the background, with the caption, "Paradise Bay Resort is everything, already on my second piña colada." I stared at that photo for a full 30 seconds, trying to make sense of it. Emma was supposed to be at work. Emma was supposed to come to my house tonight to help take care of me. Emma was definitely not supposed to be at a resort drinking piña coladas. I scrolled up frantically, looking for context, for some explanation that would make this make sense. What I found instead were more photos, time-stamped throughout the day. My parents at a poolside restaurant, both of them laughing, my dad wearing a Hawaiian shirt I'd never seen before. A video of Emma doing a cannonball into a crystal blue pool. A group shot of all 3 of them holding tropical drinks, the ocean sparkling behind them. The location tag on every single photo read, Paradise Bay Resort, Key Largo, Florida. My hands started shaking, and it wasn't from the anesthesia. My entire family was on vacation, the same week as my surgery. The surgery they'd all promised to help me through. The surgery they'd spent weeks planning around. I tried calling my mother. It rang 4 times before she answered, and when she did, her voice was bright and cheerful. "Sarah, honey, how did the surgery go?" In the background, I could hear tropical music, the sound of water splashing, people laughing, resort sounds, vacation sounds. "Mom," I said slowly, "where are you?" "Oh, sweetie, didn't David tell you? We're in Florida." Emma surprised us with this amazing long weekend getaway for my birthday. We thought it would be perfect timing since you'd be all set with David taking care of everything. My mother's birthday was in March. It was October. "But my surgery," I whispered. "Oh, honey, David said you moved it to next week because of some work thing." We were so relieved because I felt terrible about the timing conflict. You know how much Emma had already put into planning this trip. The lobby was spinning. People were moving past me in slow motion. I could hear my mother still talking, something about the beautiful weather and how thoughtful Emma was, but the words were turning into white noise. "Mom," I interrupted, "I had surgery today. Today. I'm sitting in the hospital lobby right now." The silence on the other end of the line stretched on forever. The silence on the phone stretched until my mother's voice came back, smaller and more fragile than I'd ever heard it. "Sarah, honey, David said, "He told us you rescheduled because of a work presentation. He said it was moved to next Tuesday and that you were actually relieved about the timing." I closed my eyes, feeling the full weight of the betrayal settling over me. "Mom, I never rescheduled anything. I've been planning this surgery for weeks. You all promised to help me." "Oh my God," she whispered. "Sarah, we would never. If we had known—" Emma used her savings for this trip. She said David told her it was the perfect time because you'd be busy with work stuff. I could hear her voice breaking, and part of me wanted to comfort her, to tell her it was okay, to be the strong one like always. But I was sitting in a hospital lobby in a wheelchair, abandoned, and I was done being strong for people who couldn't be trusted to show up for me. "I have to go, Mom," I said. "I need to figure out how to get home." "Wait, Sarah, let me call David. I hung up. For about 10 minutes, I just sat there in that wheelchair, staring at my phone. Nurses walked by, probably wondering why I was still there. The afternoon shift was ending, and the lobby was getting quieter. I kept thinking someone would come. David would burst through those doors with some explanation that made sense. My family would call back with proof that this was all a misunderstanding. But my phone stayed silent except for one text from Emma. Mom just called. "Sarah, I'm so sorry. I had no idea. David told us—" I turned my phone face down. I couldn't handle their apologies right now. I couldn't handle learning more about how David had manipulated everyone. I just needed to get home. The discharge nurse, Patricia, approached me cautiously. "Honey, is everything okay? Do you need me to call someone else?" "No," I said, and my voice came out steadier than I felt. "I need to call a cab." "Are you sure? After surgery, you really should have someone with you for the first 24 hours. I looked up at her. This stranger who was showing me more care than my own husband. "There is no one else to call." Patricia's expression softened. "Let me help you with that cab then." "And honey, I'm going to give you my personal number. If you need anything tonight, anything at all, you call me, okay?" While we waited for the cab, I sat there planning. The logical part of my brain, the part that had gotten me through losing my parents and building a career and managing everyone else's problems, kicked into gear. I needed to get home safely. I needed to figure out what David had told everyone and why. I needed to understand how long this had been planned. But underneath the logic was something else, something I hadn't felt in years. Pure, clean anger. I wasn't angry about the surgery itself. I could have handled that alone if I'd known I needed to. I was angry about the lies. I was angry about being manipulated. I was angry about sitting in this lobby for 3 hours believing I was forgotten, when actually I was being deliberately abandoned. The cab arrived 20 minutes later. Patricia helped me to the car, made sure I had my discharge papers, and squeezed my hand before closing the door. "Remember," she said, "you call if you need anything." The cab driver, a woman in her 50s with kind eyes, adjusted her rearview mirror to look at me. "Hospital pickup, huh? You doing okay, honey?" "I will be," I said, and realized I actually meant it. During that 45-minute ride home, I tried calling David 3 more times. Each call went straight to voicemail, which told me he was either ignoring me or his phone was off. Neither option was good. I kept replaying conversations from the past few weeks, looking for clues I'd missed. Had David seemed distant? Had there been signs he was planning something? But I couldn't think of anything unusual. He'd been normal David. Supportive David. The David who brought me tea and promised to take care of me. As we turned onto my street, I saw his car in the driveway and felt a mix of relief and dread. At least he was home. At least I'd get answers. But as the cab pulled up to our house, I noticed something that made my stomach drop. The front door was standing slightly open. David never left doors unlocked, let alone open. He was obsessive about home security. I paid the driver, declined her offer to help me to the door, and stood on my front walkway staring at that partially open door. Every instinct told me something was very wrong. And for the first time that day, I decided to trust my instincts. I stood on my front porch for what felt like forever, staring at that partially open door. The rational part of my brain was generating innocent explanations. Maybe David had rushed out to look for me at the hospital. Maybe he'd forgotten to lock up in his panic when he realized his mistake about the surgery date. But deep down, I knew better. David didn't make mistakes like leaving doors open. And if he'd realized his error about the surgery, why hadn't he answered any of my calls? I pushed the door open slowly, listening. The house was quiet except for the hum of the refrigerator and the distant sound of voices coming from the kitchen. As I stepped inside, I could smell something that didn't belong. A floral perfume that wasn't mine, mixed with the scent of Chinese takeout. I slipped off my shoes, moving as quietly as possible despite the post-surgery soreness in my abdomen. Each step toward the kitchen felt like walking toward the edge of a cliff. Part of me wanted to turn around, go back outside, call David's phone, and give him a chance to explain before I saw whatever I was about to see. But I'd spent the last 4 hours making excuses for people who didn't deserve them. I was done giving anyone the benefit of the doubt. The voices became clearer as I approached the kitchen. David's laugh, the one I used to love, warm and genuine, and another voice responding, lighter, feminine, familiar in a way that made my skin crawl. I recognized that laugh. I'd heard it at David's office Christmas party last year and at the company barbecue in July. Jessica Torres from his development team, the one who always seemed to find reasons to touch David's arm when she talked to him, the one I jokingly called his work wife until David got defensive and told me I was being paranoid. I wasn't paranoid. I was right. I reached the kitchen doorway and stopped. They were sitting at our dining table, the table David and I had picked out together 3 years ago, the one where we ate breakfast every morning and paid bills every Sunday night. David was leaning back in his chair, relaxed, a wine glass in his hand. Jessica was across from him, her dark hair falling over her shoulder as she laughed at something he'd said. There were takeout containers spread across the table, 2 wine glasses, both half empty. Jessica's purse was on the counter next to a bouquet of flowers I'd never seen before. They looked comfortable, intimate, like they'd done this before. David saw me first. The color drained from his face so fast I thought he might pass out. His wine glass froze halfway to his lips. "Sarah," he said, and his voice cracked on my name. "You're home. I thought the surgery was supposed to be tomorrow." Jessica turned around, and when she saw me, she immediately stood up, knocking her chair backward. "Oh my God, Sarah, I didn't—" David said. I walked into the kitchen slowly, deliberately. Every step hurt, but I wasn't about to show weakness now. "David," I said, my voice surprisingly calm, "I had surgery today. Today, like we've been planning for weeks. Like you promised to pick me up from at 4 p.m., like you've known about for over a month." He opened and closed his mouth several times, looking frantically between Jessica and me. There was a mix-up with the dates. I thought it was Tuesday next week. I swear, Sarah, I would never— "Stop," I said. I walked to the counter where David's phone was lying face up. I could see notification after notification on his lock screen. Missed calls from me, text messages from me, a voicemail notification. "Your phone has been right here the whole time, hasn't it?" I picked it up. "All those calls I made while I was sitting in that hospital lobby for 3 hours? You heard every single one." Jessica was backing toward the kitchen door. "I should go. I'm so sorry, Sarah. I had no idea you were having surgery today. David told me you were out of town for work." "Don't leave yet, Jessica," I said, still holding David's phone. "I want to understand something first. How long has this been going on?" David stood up abruptly. "Sarah, let me explain. This isn't what it looks like." I looked around the kitchen, at the wine glasses and romantic dinner setup, at the flowers, at Jessica's guilty face and David's desperate eyes. "Really?" I said. "Because it looks like my husband set up my entire family to be out of town during my surgery so he could have an affair in our house while I was recovering alone." The silence that followed was deafening. Jessica's face went white. David's mouth opened and closed like a fish, gasping for air. "That's exactly what this is," I continued. "Isn't it, David?" David finally found his voice, though it came out as a broken whisper. "Sarah, please, let me explain. This wasn't supposed to happen like this." "You're right," I said, setting his phone back down on the counter. "It wasn't supposed to happen at all. Jessica, you can go now. This conversation is between my husband and me." Jessica grabbed her purse and practically ran for the door, mumbling apologies that meant nothing to me. I heard the front door slam, and then it was just David and me in our kitchen, surrounded by the evidence of his betrayal. "How long?" I asked. "Sarah, it's not what you think." "How long, David?" He ran his hands through his hair, the same gesture he made when he was stressed about work deadlines or family obligations. Except this time, he was stressed about getting caught cheating on his wife while she recovered from surgery. 6 months, he said finally. But it didn't mean anything. It was just... We were working late on the Morrison project and things just happened. It wasn't planned. 6 months. I repeated the words, letting them sink in. The same 6 months I was having gallbladder attacks. The same 6 months you were holding my hair back while I threw up from pain. The same 6 months you were telling me you loved me and wanted to take care of me. He had the decency to look ashamed. "I do love you, Sarah. This doesn't change that." I laughed, and the sound surprised even me. "David, you orchestrated an elaborate lie involving my entire family just so you could have sex with your coworker while I recovered from surgery alone. That's not love, that's sociopathic." What happened next was the strangest part of the whole day. I didn't cry, I didn't scream, I didn't throw things or demand answers to questions that didn't matter anymore. Instead, I felt this incredible clarity wash over me. "I want you out of this house tonight," I said. "Take whatever you need for a few days. I'll have the locks changed tomorrow." "Sarah, we can work through this. Couples therapy, counseling, whatever you want." "No," I said simply. "We can't, because the person I thought I married would never have done this. Which means I never really knew you at all." He tried to argue, to negotiate, to make promises about changing, but I was done listening to David make promises. I went upstairs, took a long shower, and when I came back down, he was gone. The next 48 hours were a blur of phone calls and difficult conversations. My parents drove back from Florida overnight, arriving Wednesday morning with tears in their eyes and grocery bags full of ingredients for soup I no longer wanted. Emma took a red-eye flight home, showing up at my door with dark circles under her eyes and a detailed plan for destroying David's life that was both touching and illegal. We had no idea. If we had known, we would never have done it. How could we lie to us? Here's what I realized. Emma howled around. We had been mutually risks not decided. David betrayed all of us, using our love for each other. I knew my parents would want to show me a special place. I knew Emma would want to surprise them. I knew I would want my family to have that experience. Even if it meant sacrificing some of my own support. I had counted on all of us to be decent. And these days, cover up his affair. A divorce papers were filed for him. Jessica's husband was involved, been suspicious for months. She would thank me for terminating all day long. David lost his job when their affair violated the company's ethics policy. I kept the house, the savings account, and my self-respect. But the real lesson came 6 months later, when I was completely healed and stronger than I'd been in years. I realized that sitting in that hospital lobby, abandoned and alone, was actually the moment I found myself. For the first time in my adult life, I had to rely entirely on my own strength, and I discovered I had more of it than I'd ever imagined. I learned that the people who truly love you will never make you wait alone in a hospital lobby. And if they do, they're not your people. I learned that betrayal, while devastating, can also be liberating. It strips away illusions and shows you who you really are when everything falls apart. Most importantly, I learned that the most reliable person in my life was me. And for the first time in 34 years, that was enough. If someone you love has ever made you question your worth, remember this: the right people don't make elaborate plans to abandon you when you need them most. And if they do, walking away isn't giving up. It's growing up. That's my story. The day I thought would be about recovering from surgery became the day I discovered who I really was and what I was truly capable of. Sometimes life has a way of showing you exactly what you need to see, even when it's the last thing you want to face. To everyone watching this, I want you to know that if you're going through something similar, you're stronger than you think. Trust your instincts. Value yourself enough to walk away from people who don't value you. And remember that being alone is infinitely better than being with someone who makes you feel alone. If this story resonated with you, or if you've been through something similar, I'd love to hear from you in the comments below. Your experiences matter, and sharing them helps other people feel less alone in their struggles.